morning, and welcome to The Future is Now, Innovation in 2021. I'm Pam Banks, the Executive Director of the RIC Centre, and I'm excited to kick off our session today. The past year has been challenging, changing the way we live and work. It's reinforced the things that are important, like our health, our family, and security, and it's also reset the playing field and created new industry opportunities. Although RIC Centre has been hosting tech forecasts for over 10 years, today represents many firsts. This is the first forecast hosted from our new location in the Brampton Innovation District, the first virtual forecast, and the first session to feature a global futurist. Today, more than ever, it's important to connect innovators to existing businesses and industry leaders. Innovators create solutions at a speed difficult for corporations to match, but they need these connections to visionary leaders within corporations to scale. Industry leaders are a valued part of the RIC Centre experts. Their support helps our companies through programs like our MVP to Market and the RIC Incubator. Like many of you, I've been looking forward to 2021 with anticipation and hope. So today we are joined by one of the world's leading global futurists and innovation experts. Jim Carroll has inspired more than 2 million people over the past 25 years. And today, Jim will share his insights virtually via his state-of-the-art at-home broadcast studio. 4 entrepreneurs that have worked with the RIC Centre to launch and scale their companies will join Jim as panelists. Together, they'll explore opportunities in the year ahead in education technology, artificial intelligence and HR, clean tech and recycling, and the industrial Internet of Things. These entrepreneurs will share their vision for the year ahead. We'll be sharing this session later online to recap all of the information here today, plus ways to add value to your scaling company. But first, I'd like to invite you to share and listen to remarks from our Mayor, Patrick Brown.
Good morning to our RIC Centre partners, fellow speakers, and honored guests. I'm honored to be here today to officially welcome the RIC Centre to our downtown Brampton Innovation District. And although we are together virtually today, I understand you are all moved in on George Street and ready to open your actual doors when that becomes possible. Although we have been working together for a number of years, we are so excited, elated that you've relocated to join us here in Brampton as we build our innovation district with the ultimate goal of creating a series of supports for Brampton's entrepreneurs for every stage of their journey. Ultimately, we want to create an ecosystem where entrepreneurs can create companies and products, hire talent, raise capital, and scale their company all without leaving our innovation district in downtown Brampton. Now that's exciting. Your presence brings us one step closer to achieving our goal of creating that ecosystem. You're joining a number of other partners who provide complementary services which will work hand in hand with your offerings. It's a great mix. Current partners in our innovation district include our Brampton Entrepreneur Center, also known as BEC. City is very proud of BEC. The Catalyst Cyber Accelerator, led by Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst and Ryerson DMZ, another great addition to our downtown. The Ryerson Venture Zone, our newest addition, is the Founder Institute, led by the very capable Sunil Sharma, a global accelerator firm providing support to high potential early stage companies. And of course, the Brampton Board of Trade and the Downtown Brampton Business Improvement Area, the BIA, and they're key partners for the city and key partners for our innovation district. And very soon, we will be having Beehive setting up shop in our innovation district as well. And I'm pretty pumped about Beehive. Beehive provides a soft landing spot for international startups through the Startup Visa program. So some of the best talent and best ideas around the world coming to downtown Brampton. We already have evidence that successful startups can be born in Brampton and that large corporates such as Dynacare can thrive. And all this was possible before we had the supports of our innovation district. So just imagine how amazing it's going to be when we have additional supports to incubate these success stories. We're seeing a lot of early success from businesses, our partners in the innovation district. They are working hard, and we have a lot of optimism. For example, our Founder Institute has worked with their client Alcira to raise $500K in funding. And I know that you have already had two companies, Toss Down and NADBA, move to Brampton as part of your organization earlier this year. The continued evolution of our innovation district is a key piece of our economic recovery strategy. Although actual doors aren't wide open right now, the innovation district is going to continue to navigate the impacts of COVID-19 to ensure that we can continue to grow, invest, and hire despite the current climate that we're in. And we're excited that we're welcoming companies even now during COVID-19, and we're going to be even more excited when we can welcome everyone back after COVID-19 is over. Until then, we will continue our work virtually to support our entrepreneurs and move our economic recovery forward. Welcome, RIC Centre. We look forward to your continued partnership with you in downtown Brampton. We know that it's only going to be exciting developments on the horizon. So thank you. Enjoy today's event. I wish it could be in person, but this virtual celebration, this virtual welcome will have to do for now, given COVID-19.
Thank you, Mary Brown, for that very warm welcome. We couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time for Brampton and RIC Centre. Good morning to everyone joining us online. I'm Shirley Speakman. In addition to being chair of the RIC Centre, I'm a senior partner with Cycle Capital, a Canadian-based clean tech venture capital company investing throughout North America. As an investor in early stage opportunities, I've seen firsthand the challenges faced by tech companies. And I am very proud of the RIC Centre's hard work in supporting tech companies. At last count, RIC Centre's portfolio of tech companies generated over $421 million in revenue, raised over $500,000 in financing, and created over 2,500 jobs. And we have every confidence that these companies will continue to grow and contribute to a tech community and economy, much like our panelists are achieving today. As the ecosystem in Peel continues to grow, RIC Centre has chosen to relocate itself in the heart of Brampton's Innovation District, a key hub along the Toronto-Waterloo Innovation Corridor. As Mayor Brown noted, we're excited to join other players in our new location, including Brampton Cybersecure Catalyst, Brampton Entrepreneur Centre, Ryerson Zone in Brampton, and Founders Institute, among others. By working together, we'll ensure we have the full range of support for entrepreneurs through the various stages of their ventures. We have an amazing team of advisors, including IP experts from Bearskin Parr, finance and accounting expertise from BDO, and legal expertise from Pallet Velo. Through partnerships like the one we struck with the Canadian Blockchain Supply Association, we're supporting innovation in our local industry, and we're extending our global reach through a partnership with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam. Through our champion panels, our team of advisors roll up their sleeves to help resolve challenges for tough tech companies getting to market. Today's event focuses on the future of tech and innovation, our move to the Brampton Innovation District, and the future of RIC Centre. We are taking this opportunity to announce that this year, RIC Centre will have a new name and new brand identity. This change will help reaffirm our role within the evolving ecosystem and have greater reach. The organization will continue to serve our current clients and run all of our core programs under our new brand. Stay posted on social media and the email newsletter for announcements this quarter. Now we'll move on to our main event, headlining futurist Jim Carroll.
Thank you, Shirley, and thank you, Pam. The thing is going virtual. I know Shirley and Pam have been sitting there absolutely terrified. Is everything going to work. I'm a global futurist, and I'm right now down in my basement. I live in Lauren Park in Mississauga, and my previous life had me flying around the world, where I would get on great big glorious stages in Las Vegas in front of 10,000 people to talk about the future and talk about trends and talk about what comes next. And this is where I am now. I'm in a green screen studio. When the pandemic started in mid-February, I knew my life as it was coming to an end. So I began working incredibly hard down here to reinvent myself for the reality of what comes next in this very complex world. And you know, this is what we can do when we focus on the opportunity to reinvent. I didn't have a stage anymore, so I figured I was going to build myself a stage so that I could continue to share my insight with organizations worldwide. Now, I've had an incredible run over the years. My client list has absolutely been magical. Look, a number of years ago, NASA had me, and they actually had me in twice. And at one moment in time, I found myself preparing a PowerPoint deck for a keynote to NASA. And I'm going to have a couple of hundred astronauts in the room. I'm going to have literally rocket engineers. I'm going to have astrophysicists who are studying the origins of the universe. And this is a little bit of a freaky situation, folks. So I'm sitting there, I'm putting together my PowerPoint deck, and I'm thinking, what can I possibly talk about in terms of the future of space to a bunch of astronauts? And I started thinking to myself, you know, the future, space, George Jetson. I'm gonna talk about George Jetson. That's what I'm going to focus on. So I dug out this picture of the Jetsons. Now, you will remember this TV show. It appeared in the 1960s. I saw it as a child. It purported to show what the world would look like in the year 2062, 100 years later. So it was a futurist, a group of futurists predicting what would come next. And they had robots, and they had flying cars and autonomous vehicles. And the point I was making to NASA was one I made to many organizations over a 25-year career. We thought the future was far away. The future is actually coming at us with greater speed, greater intensity. And, you know, I coined the phrase, we live in the era of acceleration. Well, now I look at COVID-19 and, you know, realize a lot of what we saw with the Jetsons emerged with COVID-19. Distance education, telemedicine, you know, online shopping, all of these types of things were predicted actually in the show. Now, most of my events have been down in the US, even though I'm based in Mississauga. 80%, 90% of what I do has been south of the border. And my wife is a very intelligent woman. She said to me years ago, don't talk about politics down there. It's not going to go well. The country is split. But we all know that we've been in this reality TV show for several years here. And I would try to diplomatically get on stage and try to explain the societal split in the US by saying, you know, think about what is happening. We're actually in the situation in which we, you know, have the Jetsons are meeting the Flintstones. There was an episode where that unfolded, you know, and the Jetsons forward-oriented, aligned to the future. And the Flintstones sort of stuck in the past. And we're even seeing the reality of that emerge with COVID-19, with the great mask debate that is unfolding in society today. So, you know, we can draw some inspiration for the future from what we've seen in the past. Another TV show I grew up with is called Get Smart. Maxwell Smart, a secret agent, a spy. And, you know, it's kind of fascinating to go back and look at this television show because when he would meet with the chief, I realized what they did in this particular episode, and a lot of the technology they were using in the 1960s predicted the era of social distancing, predicted the era of social bubbles, predicted the era of what would happen when we all had to separate ourselves from each other. Watch this little clip. It's kind of fascinating. They're about to have a discussion, and Maxwell Smart reaches into the case and takes out cone of silence technology by which they can interact with each other. I mean, obviously, this is a little bit goofy, but you got to have some fun as you start out this early in the morning while you still have your coffee. Here's the thing. I've been talking about the future to global organizations for 25 years, and what we know is that everything has changed. The future has become faster. My tagline for a long time has been that the future belongs to those who are fast. COVID-19 it's an accelerant. It's magnified and accelerated everything that is good and everything that is bad. Look, I spoke to a global retail conference a few weeks back, and you know, the observation from one organization that, you know, e-commerce was always going to be the future. Brands just never thought they would have to do it in just 2 months. When I would go out on stage and talk to my clients, I would explain we need to think about this context of innovation. And I would explain to my audiences that it's all about asking ourselves three questions. How do we run our business better? How do we grow our business? And how do we transform our business? And everything has changed in that transformation has become the key driver. We have all had to transform our businesses to align to the reality of what comes next. So what I want to do here in the brief period of time I have before we go and talk to the panelists is talk about our world pre-COVID. How has the future changed as a result of COVID? And what do we do going forward? Well, the reality is this. COVID has changed everything. We had a lot of trends unfolding in our world before COVID. I found myself with organizations around the world, Fortune 1000 organizations, talking about the future of healthcare, talking about the future of innovation, talking about the future of broadcasting, talking about the world of agriculture, talking about the world of transportation. What we know is we were already in the midst of massive transformative trends. We were already in the midst of a world in which everything was changing with significant disruption. You know, there's a page on my website, disruption.jimcarroll.com, and what I do on this page is I talk about the key disruptive trends which are defining the future for so many industries. 24 reasons why everything as we know it is changing everything, why incumbency is no longer a guarantee of success, why organizations are being disrupted. And I'll go through a short list of just a few of these trends. Number one, we were already in a situation pre-COVID in which multiple trends were coming together. 3D printing, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, the Internet of Things. We were in a situation in which a whole bunch of technologies were coming together all at once. And what it was doing was opening up the imagination machine of entrepreneurs worldwide who were saying, I can develop new lines of business, I can pursue new opportunities, I can develop new products. The key driver of this is that every single industry is becoming a software industry. Software, technology controls the future of every single industry. Cars are becoming computers. The world of healthcare is increasingly driven by bioconnectivity, remote medical devices, distance education. Every industry is now impacted in the fact that they are becoming a software industry. And what happens when every industry becomes a software industry? Moore's law defines the speed of change. Moore's law is the law that the processing power of a computer chip doubles every 18 months and the cost cuts in half. And that law is coming to every industry. It is driving furious rates of change. And not only that, but science itself is exponentiating. What we have witnessed with the development of various vaccines is a collapse in the period of time for vaccine development. From 12 years to less than 12 months, we have never seen a world in which change has happened so quickly. Part of what is happening here, which is so magical, is what I call edge thinking, crowdfunding networks, collaborative online communities, the ability for people to virtualize their thinking and connect with peers worldwide in ways that were never previously possible, which accelerates the whole process of research and development. Part of what is happening with technologies like the Internet of Things is that distributed technologies redefine entire industries. One of the most exciting industries today, and RIC is involved with this, is clean tech technology. The acceleration of wind and solar with microgrid technology. I just spoke to several hundred energy executives in the US about the fact that the entire energy grid is being distributed with distributed technologies. It is massively disruptive. Do you know what happens with these trends? Organizations need to continually reinvent themselves. They continually need to be in a mindset that we need to come up with new forms of revenue where that revenue has not previously existed. We need to have revenue which didn't exist 5 years ago, and we need to invent products that do not yet exist today, because that will be the core focus of our revenue opportunity 5 years in the future. You know what happens with all this? Incumbency falters. Organizations are no longer guaranteed success. Organizations are no longer guaranteed that the position they find themselves in today is the position they will find themselves in tomorrow. Everybody is at risk of becoming a Kodak, a Blockbuster, a BlackBerry, a Motorola, an organization for whom failure is their future. In the context of all this, ideas accelerate. I am so positive and so optimistic about the future because I've never seen an era in which we have so many new opportunities, so many new ideas. Innovation is truly oxygen for what we can do with our imagination. In the last context of this, 10 of 24 of these issues, knowledge accelerates. Do you know we were in a situation with medical knowledge, that medical knowledge was doubling every 8 years, just 5 years ago? The volume of global medical knowledge is now doubling every 72 days. We've never been in a world in which we have seen such an acceleration of knowledge. We live in a truly staggering period of time. What are the implications of this? Well, entire industries change. You know, if we were to put ourselves in the year 2030 and look back at where we were today, we would realize, for example, in the world of energy, we used to be a world which was based on carbon, on oil, on natural gas, on coal. But increasingly, most of the energy we consumed came from solar, from wind, renewables, from intelligent microgrids where everything was connected. And a lot of small scale energy production occurring in backyards and in industrial facilities fed into a massively complicated grid. The world of construction, we are rapidly moving from a world in which we assemble facilities on site to a world in which increasingly we assemble those facilities in factories through production methodologies for final quick assembly on site. In the world of medicine, the impact of genomic medicine is such that we're moving to a world in which increasingly we can look at a couple of hundred strands of your DNA and know what you are likely to become sick with. We are moving to a world in which we know what you will become sick with, and we re-architect the delivery of healthcare resources based upon that knowledge. In the world of cars, we're going to look back in the year 2030 and remember a quaint day in which we used to drive cars and they used something called gas. And then we found ourselves in a world in which increasingly these cars drove themselves, and they were essentially big batteries on wheels with a computer inside. The world of retail. We'll quaintly remember the day where we used to go to places called shopping malls to get the products, but the products increasingly came to us delivered by sophisticated last mile technology. The world of manufacturing, mass customization. Moving to a world of mass customization for a product of one based upon 3D printing technology. Here's our reality. We are in a situation in which companies that do not yet exist will build products not yet conceived, using materials not yet invented, with methodologies not yet in existence. That is your future, and that is where you discover opportunity. Or are you someone who is sitting back going, whoa, 2020 was really bad, and there is no opportunity, and COVID has changed everything. What COVID has done is it has accelerated the future. Think about the acceleration of last mile delivery. In my home in Mississauga, I'm about 3 miles from the main Amazon warehouse. And what I am seeing is an increasing number of entrepreneurs, putting in place sophisticated last mile delivery capabilities. We're going to see an acceleration of robotics, drones, little autonomous vehicles that might deliver that product to our home. We are witnessing a massive acceleration of the future. How has COVID changed things? I realized early on, I was on a global national news show way back in March. And they were looking at what were entrepreneurs doing to reinvent themselves for the reality of the future. I was already fooling around in my virtual green screen broadcast studio. And what I did was I analyzed already what I saw with a bunch of entrepreneurs where speed was everything. There was a farmer featured in that show. He was out by Oshawa. His entire world was focused around the farmers' markets that he would take his products to. And he realized that world came to an end. In a matter of a week, he set up an e-commerce platform. He set up a delivery team. He virtualized his business and the business of other farmers with the farmers market technology that he could bring to the world. Think about how quickly gyms and fitness centers align themselves to the opportunity for online workouts. Think about what retailers did to quickly move to curbside pickup, pick and pack, home delivery, e-commerce. Think about how quickly manufacturing companies scaled up existing 3D printing manufacturing to print surgical masks, nasal swabs, and other critical technologies to deal with COVID-19. Think about what happened with the acceleration of drone technology in the agricultural sector and robotics, where farmers were increasingly looking at robotics to deal with the fact that social distancing meant there would be a labor shortage. Even Metallica and entertainment artists had to reach out virtually. One of the most fascinating industries I saw there was organized religion, where they quickly virtualized everything they did. Do you know what has happened with COVID? When I would go on stage in my previous life, I would explain that, we had something called the Gartner hype cycle. And every trend, every technology, every concept that comes to our world goes through this curve. We have the trigger. Everybody gets very excited about the trend, and we hit the peak of inflated expectations. And then they realize, whoa, it's going to be a lot of work to make this go. but eventually we hit the plateau of productivity. Take the concept of electronic commerce, online shopping. I wrote a book about selling online in 1999, and people said, what a dumb idea. People will never do that. Well, we had the innovation trigger. We had the peak of inflated expectations with the dot-com years. We hit the trough of disillusionment, but eventually e-commerce came to dominate the future of that world. What has happened with COVID-19? It has shifted this curve. It has sped everything up. What we witnessed with COVID-19 was we witnessed 10 years of change in but 6 months. All of the major trends, which I was talking to my global client list about for 25 years, have accelerated. The future is faster than it was before. Organizations have learned something new about speed. Committees are dead. Inertia is over. Organizations have learned they can move fast. Organizations have learned that agility and flexibility are absolutely critical to what they do. Business models shifted faster. Distance education, electronic commerce, telehealth. You can take any industry and you can see where business models shifted faster than ever before. An attitude that it can't be done, that was shattered by absolute necessity. We had no choice. We had to reinvent ourselves faster than ever before. Decision-making paralysis was totally obliterated. The slow structure was put under a microscope. Old barriers to new ideas disappeared. You could no longer say, well, you can't do that because we've always done it this way, or it won't work, or it's a dumb idea, because we simply had to do things we previously thought would be impossible. Get it done became the rallying cry. We had no time to waste. We have witnessed something remarkable in the world of business in the last 6 months. And I think it has forever changed everything going forward. Look, any list of 10 things has to go to 11. I'm a huge fan of the movie Spinal Tap. And you might remember that scene where Rob Reiner is with Nigel, and Nigel is explaining his amplifier and the specialized amplifier that he has that goes to 11, and my list goes to 11. The rallying cry became, how do we sustain the momentum? How do we keep ourselves going forward in this complex world? And that's where we find ourselves today. What do we do in 2021? We are on the edge of a precipice of massive new opportunity. We have so many trends which are speeding up to such a degree, and you're going to hear from some entrepreneurs who previous to COVID were aligning their mindset, their opportunity, their imagination, their opportunity to a future that was unprecedented. And now that future is bigger than ever before. If you were sitting back at the edge of 2021 and thinking there is no opportunity out there, you aren't in the right mindset to align yourself to the future. Because what is now unfolding as this new era of speed and opportunity unfolds in front of us is something that is truly magical. I came down to my virtual broadcast studio here yesterday because I forced myself to come down here once a day to film something, to put it out there on social media, to share it with my followers, and also simply to get good at the ability to talk to the world in the context of my small little basement. This is not a Las Vegas stage. This is a small 8x12 room in my basement with a whole bunch of sophisticated technology. And I spoke about what I learned in 2020. What I learned is this: speed matters. Agility is everything. What I learned was that accepting our reality was key because it became a fuel for our momentum. Do you know what happens when we go through an economic challenge like COVID-19? Is many of us fall prey to what I call the 7 stages of economic grief. We go through the shock phase, we go through the anger phase, we go through the denial phase. When COVID happened, I spent about 24 hours in that negative mindset. And then I decided right away I was going to move to the acceptance stage because it would be my ability to align to a new reality that would permit me to reinvent, would truly align my future. Once I did that, optimism ruled. Attitude was everything. Some people see the future and see a threat. Innovators see the same future and see an opportunity. Is that your mindset? Or are you someone who sees the future and sees, whoa, somebody's nibbling away at my business. I have no opportunity. I can't innovate. That's the wrong mindset. Action mattered. Indecision failed. I had a column in the Global Mail for about 8 years back in the 1990s. And one of the columns I wrote about, I identified what was happening with my global clients. I called it aggressive indecision. I said what was happening with my clients was they were becoming indecisive. They weren't sure how the future was going to unfold. We're not going to make a decision to invest in the future because we're not quite certain what comes next. They became aggressively indecisive. But you know what happens with economic uncertainty? A study by GE determined that 60% of organizations, historically, when we have economic uncertainty, sort of muddle their way through. They don't do anything big and bold. 30% disappear, but 10% became breakthrough performers because they specifically decided, despite lingering economic uncertainty, right now is the time to innovate. We know in 2020, reality split, perspective counted. We know that there was a massive delusion throughout society, particularly with our friends south of the border. But it was our ability to accept the reality of the change occurring around us that defined our mindset for opportunity. Resilience defined us. Reinvention was critical. I'm down here in my home broadcast studio tomorrow. I'm interviewing a rock star from the UK in a new show I'm launching about reinvention because I think that is our key word for 2021 going forward. Risk taking accelerated. Failure was warranted. If we did not take risks, trying new ideas, new opportunities, new pursuits, new methodologies, we weren't doing what was necessary. Change stuck. Habits formed. People have discovered online shopping and they won't be going back in any massive form like we were before. The world of retail has changed forever. Habits formed. People like telehealth. The ability to simply schedule a quick visit with your doctor for a non-emergency routine checkup, that's going to be with us for a long time to come. The result of all this is that strategies shifted. An open mind really defined our future. And that brings us to the key point. We need to rethink where we're going next. And that's where the concept of innovation becomes so critical. That's where the focus on opportunity defines everything we do. You're going to hear from 4 panelists on what they were doing pre-COVID and where this will take us in the future. And the opportunity, the reality, because my timer warns me that I've hit exactly the 22 minutes that I've planned, what we can do to align the reality of what comes next. I've reinvented. This is me down in my basement right now, where all I've got is this green wall and what I call my canvas of creativity to provide myself a platform to take myself into the future, because some people see the future and see a threat. Innovators see the same future and see an opportunity. So with that, we're going to introduce 4 entrepreneurs to you. We have AJ Kochar with Lycycle. We have Amir Azari with AOMS. We have Jay Ansari with Nakri, and we have Rohan Mahakamir with Prodigy Education. And I'm awful with names. I apologize for that. But let's start out with Amir. And we've got to be very cognizant of time here. Tell me in 2 minutes. You're obviously, as an entrepreneur, you have an elevator pitch. Share with the audience your elevator pitch, who you are, what you do, the market you're pursuing, and the nature of the opportunity you see in front of you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jim. It was a very encouraging and exciting basically talk that you had. So my name is Amir. I'm one of the founders of AOMS. We provide industrial IoT solutions to basically to different industries for certain applications, for asset monitoring, for process monitoring. And we have a wide range of products, including fiber optics technology and wireless technology for oil and gas industry, for construction industry, for environmental industry. And we basically try to enhance the efficiency and enhance the productivity in these industries and do predictive maintenance to help them reduce the cost. And so in this pandemic, it seems that these value propositions become more outstanding to the industry.
Let's flip over to Jay. Elevator pitch story. What brought you to where you are, and what do you believe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we started off a couple of years ago, and I was applying to jobs, and I really wouldn't hear back from a lot of employers. I have a long ethnic name. My name is John Zabe, and so my co-founder's like, why don't you just anglicize this? And we went from a variation of Jason, Jacob, and literally in 4 to 6 weeks, I got a job. And with that experience, we felt that there's so many people that are being overlooked and that there has to be a better solution. And that is how we started Naukri, which is essentially an AI-powered skills-based assessment tool that reduces bias and stack ranks the best candidates to interview. We're utilized by customers such as IBM on a global level, Education First, Novartis, and so on.
It's an absolutely wonderful Canadian story when you think about the diversity that our country treasures and values, and also maybe a pretty sad indictment that you had to develop such a platform. But you've had a wonderful take up, I understand, in terms of the reaction to it, which I think is a very powerful statement. Rohan, Prodigy Game, and a fun little thing. I actually manage. I'm the iPad manager for a not-for-profit charity I'm involved with of young mentally challenged adults, and I realized there's your software is on our iPad. So tell us a little bit about Prodigy. What you're accomplishing and the market that you're in.
Absolutely, thanks, Jim. So Prodigy is a company with the mission of helping every student in the world to love learning. And to give you some background on how we started, it was actually a 4th-year project for my co-founder Alex and I at the University of Waterloo. I went to tutoring programs similar to Kumon growing up, and there were a lot of worksheets in my early past, and I remember just doing pages and pages of math problems and absolutely dreading that process. At the very same time, I was engaged in video games like Pokemon. So Alex and I, when we were in engineering at Waterloo, we said, why do these two things have to be such disparate experiences? And can we make math as engaging, if not even as addictive as a Pokemon style video game? So that's essentially what we do. Our flagship product is a game-based learning solution where students can enter a massive online fantasy world and essentially learn the entire grade 1 through 8 curriculum. And in terms of our story, after we graduated from the University of Waterloo, we essentially spent the first 1.5 years beta testing our product with 2 private schools in Ontario. It officially launched in January of 2013, and Alex and I basically borrowed our parents' cars and drove to as many schools as we could physically get to in Ontario. I probably put 150,000 kilometers on my parents' Camry in that first little bit. And that has allowed us to springboard, and a lot of our growth has become organic since then. So where we are today is we help about 25% of all students in Canada and the United States, grades 1 through 8 as monthly active users. We're the leading math platform in North America. We're starting our expansion to India, the UK, and a few other places around the world. And our vision is really to build the world's largest and most effective education company. So really excited about pushing full steam ahead there.
Okay. You did get the memo about politicians being caught out going down to the Caribbean and stuff like that. So your choice of a Zoom background was just by accident. You should have like a snowstorm happening back there or something. AJ, batteries, energy, as I'm speaking about the future of energy and the era of carbon is over. Share with us your story.
Yeah, and pretty diverse company set here. Yes, Ajay Kochar here. And of course, when we talk about innovation in the future, batteries are central to that. And a little bit of the story behind life cycle. My co-founder and I are both engineers. We used to work in the lithium industry. So lithium-ion batteries like the one in my phone or electric vehicles all around us in our everyday lives, demand increasing. And we used to be, my co-founder and I, more on the front end of the supply chain. So really the refining of extracted lithium materials from the earth. So really mining and refining and engineering plants that produce those chemicals. And what was happening was we were getting asked frequently as we think about batteries being around us in our everyday lives and electric vehicles, I'm sure folks are saying more and more, but what's gonna happen to all those batteries? What's gonna happen to that tsunami per se? On the one hand, and the other hand of it is supply and demand of critical materials. Canada as a country is actually very rooted a lot of these critical materials, but more from the mining context as well. So to cut to life cycle, this really got us on the case here for recycling. And the thing that was unsatisfying to us was we didn't see a sustainable circular solution with optimized economics relative to what's been happening to these batteries, which has really been burning them for a long time. So fast forward to today, Life Cycle's the largest lithium-ion battery recycler in North America. We're 70 plus people, growing to over 100 in the next few months. we have 2 commercial operations, and we're looking towards global rollout at present. So it's only been 4 and a bit years, very rapid scale up and more of a clean tech, hard tech approach to things, but very exciting and excited for the future.
Okay, I think I might have had a spotlight on me the entire time while the previous panelists were talking, so hopefully you can see them all now. Question I want to ask you, and you'll notice the comment I made in my presentation, that we're in a situation in which companies that do not yet exist will build products not yet conceived, with materials not yet invented, with methodologies not yet in existence, with revenue that nobody has ever dreamed of possible. And most of you are in that situation where what you are doing was either not technically feasible or was not a presumed opportunity, or the technology in the case of distance education was maybe a little bit immature. I presume your voyage along the way, other than hanging out in your Honda, you had a lot of people telling you along the way as to why it would not work. Tell us a little bit about the barriers, the attitudes you encountered as you pursued your dream. And I was, I had not prepped you with this question, so we'll just run with it. We'll start with Rohan. What did you encounter when people started putting barriers in front of your imagination?
There are a number of things for us where we had to kind of rethink and reconsider and refactor our approach. So one good example was our initial sales methodology. We've had to go from Alex and myself physically going out to schools and selling to transitioning to completely online and remote. There were challenges that we encountered in the early stages, like which we didn't expect, like schools, their computers are physically locked down and teachers aren't able to install new software. So we've actually had to tear down and rebuild the core infrastructure and rewrite our entire program in a different programming language about 3 times in the first 3 years of the company. The business model was something that basically everybody said would not work. So we have a freemium business model where everything for schools is free and there's a paid option for parents. So that was one example of where we just had a lot of conviction around it and we believed our solution could do it. And it's worked out quite well for us since then.
How about you, Ansari? I mean, yours is a very interesting line of business, and I would imagine HR, the world of HR, the world of recruiting. I mean, they've always done everything in the same old way for the last 50 years. Did you encounter barriers to your imagination?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I would say is that we had to go through really educating the client and taking them from a state of fear to education, and then finally embracing the technology, and really getting the organizations to understand that this is not here to replace your job, but it's actually here to help you make your life easier. And so really helping them understand that message. And then secondly, when it comes to rejection, I mean, all of us can agree as entrepreneurs or as startup founders, it's just it's just the way of the journey. And in my case, I dropped out a very long time ago from university. And so, fighting an uphill battle, in my case, there was no plan B. This had to succeed. And so, when you take a look at a startup founder, what I've seen is that, if you plot them and you look at qualities such as resilience, determination, and if you're a 3 to 4 standard deviation outlier on these qualities, is what really gets you through all these hard times, right? So rejections from customers, from investors, et cetera, and just having that mindset has been extremely helpful.
Did you ever come close to giving up, or you were just determined? I've got the idea. I really want to make this work.
Well, I would say that we did pivot our idea. Initially, we thought that we're going to change the world with a mobile app, and then what we realized is that we're not the best fit for small businesses. So we started off with catering to a Tim Hortons, Hero Burgers, etc. But what we realized is that our value proposition of reducing bias, increased diversity, reducing time and cost to fill, are resonating more with larger organizations, such as an IBM, such as a Department of Defense, such as Novartis. And once we realized that, we pivoted over our business model. So yeah, ever learning what the market is saying was a huge component of how we got over a lot of those rejections as well.
Okay. Amir, the industrial Internet of Things, which is where you're operating. I mean, I was talking about that way back in the late 90s, and it's been a long time coming as a technology. And, certainly the manufacturing and construction sector, you've got a big education issue, in terms of people understanding the opportunities. What have you encountered in terms of barriers, both perceived and otherwise, along the way?
So if you don't mind, I want to take a step back. So about the barriers that we had initially, just think about a bunch of musketeers, PhD grads from the University of Waterloo, and they're trying to build a product and then basically present it to the oil and gas industry. We had tons of barriers when we started to pitch the idea, and so we had lots of hard times initially. But what I would say, the key factor in being successful is perseverance. You may need to pivot at some point, but if you believe in your idea, you should continue what you're doing. You should focus, and you shouldn't be stubborn. As already mentioned by the other panelists, you should be flexible, but at the same time, you should keep the perseverance. And what I have realized in the past couple of months is that so we also had some hardships in bringing the idea of the digitization of the construction job sites, because one of the main target markets that we have is construction. And construction, they all think, we all think that it's a kind of, no offense, it's a kind of old school industry. They are not willing to change. They are not willing to accept any new ideas, because this is what they do. And it's like 100-year-old, 200-year-old technology that they are using, and they are not willing to change. And we had a hard time pitching the idea, hey, by digitization of your construction job site, by having remote access to the information that you can have from the job site, you can optimize the process, you can advance your schedule, you can add to your efficiency, but there were always lots of resistance in the market. What we have seen recently, and initially at the time that the COVID emerged, last year, we realized that now the mindsets have started to change. And now these industries are thinking about adopting the new technologies, adopting advanced technologies, because what happened in the COVID era, in this new history that we're building, the old school ways or old methods of doing the projects is not going to work anymore. We cannot have
maybe we'll come to that, because we're going to talk about how has COVID impacted us. But sort of a key thing there that you're referencing, I think you're touching on, timing is everything. We've got the concept, we've got the idea, we've got the product, we're convinced it's right. And then it becomes a waiting game when the industries begin to accept and understand and appreciate its role. AJ, barriers. You're dealing with utilities, you're dealing with automotive manufacturers, you're dealing with people who've 100-year-old business models and a lot of entrenched ideas. What did you encounter along the way?
Yeah, if I were to bucket it into two, I think one, at the early stages of our journey, and there's always numerous quote unquote valleys of death that are referred to. I'm not going to allude to all the specific ones, but I think early on, any of these businesses, any company that you're starting, you have this circular issue. You're trying to build the team and get the traction, and you need that to get investment if you want to grow quicker, if you want to raise investment. But vice versa, you need that investment to get all those things right. So that's always a big challenge. And I'll say in the first bucket, I distinctly remember there was a panel, I won't say where, but I remember I gave a presentation, and our business is clean tech, and clean tech, doesn't need to be capital needy, if I put it that way. But in our case, it is, and that's the reality. You have to put assets on the ground, and if that's the business model you want to espouse, that's what you need. And I remember very early on, I got told by somebody in front of a room of people that I was crazy. We were going to go do this, and I think at the time our plan was even less ambitious than now. But anyways, I think the point is, in my bucket 2 of feedback, there will be ups and downs. I can tell you in our day-to-day not to get into the specifics, but I could have the best day in the world. I could have news that makes it into the worst day in the world. But for all that, you just have to be like the swan, paddling fiercely under the water and just keep on, progressing, because that's just all part of the journey. And I like what Jay said is, I think the qualities of resiliency and determination, I'm sure across the board, companies that make it to a certain point with founders definitely trend way farther with certain degrees of separation on those axes. And I'd say those things are just so important, coupled with an inherently positive outlook. You have to be positive. You have to exude that energy for your team, for people around you, and they'll take up from that. And it comes back to just, again, those points of a positive attitude, determination, resiliency. So I'll pause there. That's been our journey.
Okay, so just to summarize for everybody listening in, I mean, here's what we heard. Rohan had, conviction in where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish. Jay spoke about, let's call it flexible resiliency. A guy like me, I coin phrases, and that's what I heard. Amir, flexible stubbornness. I mean, there's a key phrase and attitude there, and AJ, relentless optimism. These I think are the attitudes that really define, what it means to be an entrepreneur. It's an attitude, it's a mindset, it's a belief in what we're trying to accomplish. So let's go to the next phase. I'm going to start with Rohan, because part of this is the timing issue, right place, right time. COVID hits, our world changes. We're all stuck in our basement, we're stuck in home, we're stuck in our condo. We can't go see our customers. We've got to virtualize. Rohan, what happened with you? And more importantly, how has this changed your business model, your mindset, your opportunities going forward? I mean, we've all been on a voyage for the last 9 months. What's been your voyage?
Yeah, so it's actually been quite an interesting time for education and EdTech, quite an interesting time for an exciting time for EdTech, given that a lot of education is moving virtually. It comes back to exactly what you said, Jim, where trends that were already happening are now accelerating pretty dramatically. So there are 3 big ones that have affected EdTech, and I've talked about this internally within our company. So first of all, education's going online. That's a trend that already existed before COVID hit, and it's accelerating. So for example, the tutoring market, a lot of the physical tutoring centers, which is about 60 to 70% of that market, are closed. So we've seen an acceleration of people looking for online solutions there. The second one is U.S. parental interest in education. So parents in the U.S., schools in the U.S. Spend anywhere between $12,000 and $13,000 per student on education. And a lot of that spend has resulted in parents playing a very passive role. So North American parents essentially pay for things like soccer, dance classes, extracurricular activities that are less academic. And if you compare that to Asia, where parents spend up to 15% of household income on education, it's very, very different. So one of the big things that we've seen with COVID here in North America is parents are now taking a much more active role in their child's education. And that has enormously accelerated the EdTech industry here. Third and final one is just general funding into EdTech. We've had a blockbuster year. There's been about $16 billion in investment in EdTech companies in 2020. That's more than double the last record. So it is materially heating up, both from a investors and a company perspective. And the really interesting point there within that excites me is that there's actually more money going to fewer companies, which signals a bit of an inflection point within the EdTech industry. And I think you're going to see some really huge players emerge, like Google or Amazon in education, which has been severely lacking in the industry historically.
One item of curiosity, and this is really important for Canadian entrepreneurs, most of whom is on the call. You mentioned the U.S. and the U.S. a big part of your market, and 90% of my speeches were south of the border. And I know we face often an anti-Canadian bias, and that we're a small backwater in the global economy. I went to the point of actually my phone numbers are in Dallas, New York, Hong Kong, England, and then I bury the Toronto number. Have you encountered that sort of American thing along the way? You're from Brampton, Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Like, where is that? Is that something you've had to work to overcome?
Besides the accent, it really doesn't matter. So people can kind of tell you're Canadian when you're talking to the U.S., but we have such great access to the US market here that I don't think it's a disadvantage for Canadian companies. In fact, you were talking about politics earlier. I think this is a situation where we're almost seen as a neutral party that's not partisan.
So we've got a great brand, and all the more reason why Brampton, Mississauga is a great region to try and accomplish.
Absolutely.
Amir, what have you encountered as a result of COVID? Social distancing and the major changes occurring in oil and gas and construction. People not allowed to go on job sites. And did this accelerate you? Did this change things much?
For us, it has been very interesting because rather than we try to reach out to customers, they are reaching out to us now. And that's quite interesting. I mean, it was before COVID, everyone has to go through a sales cycle, pitch the idea to the construction companies, to the oil and gas companies about all this digitization and industrial IoT. And now we have seen the cases that the owners of big construction companies and the big service providers to the oil and gas companies, they are reaching out to us and they are asking for solutions. They are asking that how they can enhance productivity at their job site. And I want to bring up a name here. There's a company called Bechtel. Bechtel is the largest general contractor in North America. And I've been trying to pitch the idea to them and talk about the value proposition of using this technology in all their construction job sites, a $40 billion company. And for 2 years, not that much of excitement I could see from them. But now, in less than probably 3 or 4 months, they initiated a program, and now they want to adopt the technology. This is happening. I mean, the people, even the old school people in the industry, are trying to understand the value of the technology using this, and now they have to adapt themselves to the new era. And this has been quite interesting. I'm fascinated at how the industry is changing these days. And I'm talking about the heavy industries, which are very much reluctant to using advanced technologies. So I mean, to me, it was very scary at the very beginning, but when I started to see the trend, I said, wow, COVID could have some positive impacts as well.
Yeah, as a guy, I mean, I spend my life relentlessly studying the future, and I find it absolutely fascinating what is going on. For example, in the world of manufacturing, it is very difficult to buy any sort of robotic technology right now because a lot of social distancing protocols have accelerated the use of robotics in a wide variety of manufacturing facilities. The implication of what has happened with 3D printing, it was sort of there as this magical, mystical thing of the future. But then COVID happened, and anybody with spare 3D printing capacity was suddenly, as I indicated earlier, printing surgical masks and swabs and all kinds of stuff for use in the healthcare. And what that did was that caught the attention of the CEO, where he and she were previously saying, well, I know we're dabbling in 3D printing, to a mindset of, holy cow, this is an important technology that really has an impact. So, when you get into a very discrete level of how this is changing the particular aspects and update of technologies and industries, it's truly staggering. And that's why I don't think that there's no going back to where we were as a result of COVID. There's only going to where we are. Jay, recruiting, the first big worry was that, we're going to have a global economic recession and companies are going to be letting thousands of people go and, big economic downturn. And, maybe your first reaction was, well, I'm toast because I'm in the skills recruitment business and people aren't going to be recruiting skills. But I think the opposite has happened to you. What happened? What's your story through COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as COVID hit, for our case, a lot of organizations obviously had paused in Q2. Initially, everybody's just looking at rising COVID cases, right? They could care less about any sort of technology investments. But then as soon as they really got an understanding of what they're dealing with and how remote work is very possible and they can still staff folks, then what happened is that a lot of these organizations started to reach out to us. So in our case, COVID has undoubtedly accelerated a lot of HR transformation. As you know, video has become the new norm. So, utilizing scalable and scientifically validated video assessments was a huge thing for, has become a huge thing for a lot of companies that were initially very hesitant to adopt new technologies to assess candidates, assess skills. And then, so the adoption and the acceleration of HR transformation and like video, coupled with the movement of Black Lives Matter, and Naukri's ability to actually increase gender and racial diversity for these large companies such as IBM has really put us in the spotlight. Because as you can imagine, for decades and decades, a lot of these organizations had antiquated hiring processes where they had biases that leak into the recruiting funnel. And so for decades and decades, they've been spending on so much money on these diversity and inclusion efforts, and not much has been happening, and so for us, just the transformation and adoption of video and our ability to increase gender and racial diversity and provide them with better performing talent has sort of like come together and really has helped us accelerate there.
Right place, right time. And I mean, the video thing is magical. I mean, I organized a Zoom family call for my extended relatives for a 99th birthday celebration for my 99-year-old aunt. And she was there on the call, and like, who would have imagined we'd be in that type of thing? So yeah, I mean, HR recruitment happening via video is, combined with social unrest and opportunity to fix injustice, huge. Right place, right time is so much a part of what being an entrepreneur is about. AJ, batteries, COVID, a lot of trends, self-driving cars and electrification of vehicles and microgrids, all this stuff was happening, and then COVID hit. Did it really change things for you?
No, and I recognize this period in last year has been very tough for a lot of people and a lot of different businesses. But in the clean tech industry, I do not know what happened during COVID from a positive perspective. But I don't know if folks have been following even vis-a-vis the capital markets reaction, which is an outcome of demand and the actual fundamentals associated with electrification and EVs. But something happened in COVID in a positive way. What was for a long time there, if I kind of divide up the history of electrification into three broad phases, when we used to be at Hatch, a global engineering company, my co-founder and I, at that time, there was a lot of questions of if, people would say, oh, is there going to be electrification? And it started morphing into how much and when. That was kind of phase two. And that's been the case for the past couple of years. But what we've had is this bifurcation between the Teslas of the world and then the traditional automotive companies that are coming in force in this space. But if you think about the stratification around the world, you had a lot of epicenter of innovation, say in China and Asia, but the US, for example, there weren't a lot of other independent, EV companies, for example, and the same, as a tie to Canada. And so what's happening, if I say phase three or recently, is very interesting. You have this swath of new electric vehicle companies, new ecosystem companies, and or existing charging companies that are really ramping up for the future. And if you follow the EV numbers, it is continuing to trend and be very robust in demand. But something happened in the last 12 months, and we're positively, benefiting from that. And so my message is, we're very fortunate. Did not have any negative impact, really. Obviously, there's a day-to-day health and safety concern in operations, which we had to address and lead from the front with. But after that, people still use batteries and need to drive places, and we're growing. So
you really defined it. The impact of COVID is, and I wrote this down because I'm going to use this, is we've shifted from if to when, right? That's what's happened here. And I think that's a pretty profound change. I will encourage people, there's a little Q&A button down on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and feel free to send in some questions. And we will see if we can take a few questions from the panelists as we draw towards the end. But let's come to another big issue, and that is, entrepreneurs, and you've all been involved with RIC, and you've all gone through a process of having guidance and mentorship. Tell us about the importance of the incubator to you, because there is a lot of folks on the call who might have an imaginative idea. They want to pursue an opportunity. They see the future. they don't know where to start. They might not be fully involved with an incubator, and might be here, curious as to the role of RIC. What's been your experience along the way? What did you learn, and how did it help? And we'll start with you, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we came in, we were extremely early on and really trying to understand like our market type. And so we came in initially selling to franchises of Tim Hortons and Hero Burgers, thinking like we're going to change the world that way. And the entrepreneur in residence, which is Paul Bruder, great guy, who I'm still in touch with, really helped us understand what customer the value proposition of artificial intelligence really resonates with, right? Like who really has the hair on fire? And really helping us think through that was extremely important as we pivoted and we went to market. Then a couple of years later, we're, a team of almost 30 now, raised $3 million a couple of months ago, oversubscribed. But it's just the fact that helping us see that light in who we should go after and not waste your time. And I think that was extremely helpful from the RIC Centre to us.
Rohan, over to you. Your journey. I mean, I think it was you that spoke about you were hanging out in your car for a little while as you explored the early years, but you discovered some insight along the way. How has it helped you?
Yeah, there's two big things that have been exciting for us in joining the RIC Centre. The first one is we came out with almost no entrepreneurship experience. So Alex and I were engineering students. So connecting with our entrepreneur in residence had helped us actually think through the business model and business plan and how we would earn revenue. So they introduced us to frameworks like the business model canvas. The second big thing was just connections to different resources within Ontario and within the entrepreneurship ecosystem here. So we actually bootstrapped the company for our first 8 years. And some of those government grants were really handy in helping us to get off the ground and stay efficient and not have to take on external angel or venture capital.
Okay. Amir, the role of an incubator for you along the path?
Sure. So, very similar to many startups that are coming from the university, we just had the idea about the product, but we had no idea of market. We had no idea about the business, about the business model, go-to-market strategy. So we started from our basement, putting 2 years of our time building a product. Once it was ready, who should we sell it to? So it was one of the mistakes that we made at the very beginning because we didn't do a proper market research. And we were at the time that we were also running out of funds, and we were just this much close to shut down the business. And but what happened is that it was back in 2016 that we joined the RIC Centre, and then they helped us refine our product market strategy, redefine our business model, and then land our first customer, which was fantastic because we realized that, again, as I said, we should be flexible, we should learn to pivot, and probably oil and gas was not the best market that we picked at the very beginning, and we should have thought about the other industries. So product market fit is a key for any startup, I would say, and the RIC Centre helped us realize that. And with a quick pivot, we were able to basically land into a new market opportunity and a new line of business. And after that, so RIC Centre also helped us a lot in raising our first round of investment. So we learned that we had no idea how to pitch into investors, how to prepare the pitch decks. We had no idea about just assume about fresh grads from the university, PhD grads from the university, and we have no idea about this. So I think these centers are key to the success of the startups because there are certain elements into the success of a startup, and entrepreneurs do not, if it is their first time, they do not necessarily have all the bits and pieces. And these centers will help you understand the other pieces of the puzzle to build a business. So we are very grateful for that, and we have grown substantially since the time that we joined the RIC Centre, and we think that undeniably they had a very important role in the growth of our company.
So what we're hearing so far is understand your limitations. I'm an engineer. I've got this skill set. I might not necessarily have good, business skills, and I need those. I need to learn to pivot. I might have certain assumptions that drive my belief of where I'm going, but I've got to have an open mind that I'm willing to share and challenge that. And I've got to be willing to seek collaborative advice. AJ, they took all those answers from you. What have you got left that you can share?
Yeah, if I were just to share also, I think, one thing also, and I think it's especially true in a COVID world too, in the early days, again, way we scaled was we got a really talented advisory board and I tried to bring in board members. And that was kind of the way that we bridged, having to get also then the attraction and the connectivity and then the ability to build the team and then continue that growth. So that was good. But along the way there, especially at the beginning, you can also get a little bit into your own little silo and your own little world. And especially in this COVID world, again, everyone's maybe at home or shelter in place, whatever it is. So I think the RIC Centre for us is we were part of the virtual incubator. That was just great, honestly, just to be able to do things like this, listen to other entrepreneurs and where they're at. And there's a lot of commonality, even though the industries may not be similar, but in the journeys, there's similar decision points, there's similar challenges, there's similar things we all think about. And so it's just so helpful to have, even just as a simple note, a sounding board. And the last thing I'd say is, one of our still current board members, I actually met him at a RIC Centre event, February 2017, and Rick Finlay. He ended up being very, instrumental for us then, now, brought in a layer of his, ability with respect to policy and a whole bunch of things. But if it hadn't been for getting out of that little focus of your company and getting into these ecosystems where you can engage, use folks as a sounding board, and ultimately these fortuitous connections can happen, you're never really going to get, as far as quickly. So a big proponent of partaking in incubators, virtual or in person.
What I'm really hearing here is seek advice, get outside counsel, be willing to listen, get the expertise you don't have, find the board members, find the partners, with a different mindset to help you accomplish.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing. Yeah, throughout the whole journey, and I'm sure all of us run into various folks in the course of everyday business, and some people maybe sometimes forget that. And the big thing for us culture-wise is check the ego at the door. I know what I'm good at, I know what I don't know, and I got to bring the other folks in and build the team with that specialty. And sometimes you don't run into people that that philosophy, but I think in a growing company, you need to have that day in, day out.
As soon as you said that, Jay is in the box directly below you on my version of the Zoom here, and he's nodding his head in agreement. Why do you nod your head so vigorously, Jay, to that observation?
Because I feel that there's so many startups that I see not making it, because of this, because they have such strong conviction that the approach that they're taking is the right approach without really validating it. And so I think very early on, this is so important to really lose that ego and still lose that ego. I'm not saying you should carry it forward either, but really be flexible on how you approach the customer and what is really resonating with a customer. I would say that is extremely important advice. And then one more thing I would like to add is that, similar to what Rohan was saying, is that really make use of the grants and the affiliation. We got that Smart Start Seed Fund through our of $30,000 when we started off a couple of years ago. That was huge at that time. That for us was phenomenal, right? So really make use of the grants and find try your best to find who you can sell to, etc. Try to experiment in that phase, get your early sort of proof of concepts, get some of that very early traction, and then you can go out as you've proved it out further, and then go and raise capital. That's what I would, that's what I would say to any aspiring founders. And as I think Ajay was saying as well, is that it depends on how you feel about taking on external capital. But if you want to grow fast, you might have to do that, right? And so initially, utilize like all the support from the RIC Centre. Like, you know, they used to bring us into pitch sessions, and this is extremely humbling as a founder, because you think that you have the best pitch and you've nailed the market size and you know your TAM. Chances are that, you know, you're like probably wrong. So, you know, just getting feedback from conservative like investors, from optimistic investors, and sort of taking their feedback and like crafting a really good pitch was really helpful for Notkery as well.
Okay, so let's you know, in the time we have left, you know, and Jay, we'll stick with you. 2021, what do you foresee for your business? What's your mindset in terms of what is going to unfold here?
I think in our case, our sales cycles are getting shorter, which I'm extremely happy with. However, like, you know, we're seeing sales cycles getting shorter, and we're seeing the acceptance of like HR technology at a like faster pace. We just need to make sure that these organizations don't return to an antiquated hiring process. And so we're really focused on like customer success and showing them that what new technology can do for you, and how much, you know, like in our case, we've helped increasing gender and racial diversity by up to 24% for these customers, right? So a significant uptick. We've reduced their time and cost to fill by up to 60%. And so like really showing this value proposition, and you know, just keep on moving the needle further, and you know, shortening up these sales cycles is what I'm really excited about for 2021.
But what I'm hearing there is tell your story more. You've done it. You've got the momentum happening, and great things happened in 2020 despite everything. But now we really need to make sure that they understand the story. What about you, Rohan? 2021. What's it looking like? Distance education.
Oh, yeah. Very exciting time for education. Our 2021 is going to be all about growth. So we currently have about 400 employees in the company. We're trying to hire another 400 people in 2021 itself. So it's massive growth. There's a lot of projects that we want to accelerate. So we're kind of at an interesting stage of the company where we now have our core product, but we can also scale up different initiatives and expansion opportunities. So for example, we've recently launched an online tutoring product, and that's something that we're really excited about hyperscaling in 2021. So it'll be a matter of how do we manage all of those, and can we hire the right people quickly enough?
You're at the base, hyper growth, hyperscale, hyper. I mean, I'm here, you know, the word hyper. I can just sense in the way you're thinking about it, like, wow, 2021 is going to be kind of interesting, given what has happened. AJ, I mean, you know, 10 years from now, the diesel gas cars are dead. It's all about batteries. You know, I think the Tesla situation hitting 500,000 vehicles has woken up the world to the reality of what is going on. What do you see unfolding in 2021 in light of that long-term reality?
Yeah, look, in specific to our business, I think the world is further awoken to this electrification momentum, and it is not stopping, and it is just at the inflection point. And what that means is for our business, and we've seen this now, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, we would get told, hey, Ajay and Tim, my co-founder, hey, Ajay and Tim, you're too early. This problem for recycling is 10 years away, 15 years away. As time's gone on, we've seen, you know, different sources from the market of batteries coming to us for recycling, from small devices to something that people forget or don't know is when you make new batteries, you also have scrap, that production scrap, which is, by the way, when you make millions of tons of batteries, you get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of tons of scrap. So what's happening in our business this year is, back to the theme hyper, there is certainly right now an inflection point, but also hyper growth that is about to occur as we need to continue to scale up to meet our customers' needs. And I think the helpful theme, I don't know if it's due to COVID or not, I don't think it is completely, but as we get into that train electrification and batteries, and hence the meaning it has for batteries needing recycling, companies are now more coming to us, and we're right at that perfect place, perfect time. We've spent the last 4 or 5 years prepping for this and getting the traction for it. And it's very exciting where we're going in 2021 and beyond.
And Amir, you said people are returning phone calls. People are starting to understand. You don't have to explain it as much anymore. They get it. So your world is shifted. What do you see?
I'm very excited about 2021 because trillions of dollars is going to be invested into the construction and infrastructure projects in 2021. This was something announced by the U.S. government and also in Canada. So I think that it's going to create a huge opportunity for our company because, again, we are a platform company, and the idea that we have is about offering different sort of solutions so that basically we are going to make the cost of the construction much less than what it is today. And I think we are going to have a key role in all these huge projects happening in North America today.
See, and this is what's so wonderful about 2021. I mean, I'm surrounded by people often who are like doom and gloom and there's no future and, like the pandemic is bad. And it is tragic, a huge amount of tragedy that we have yet to go through. But the reality is this is a massive accelerant, which is changing everything and changing opportunity. And if you aren't in that mindset, you're not in the right headspace. So let's close with this. 30 seconds each. If you were to give one word to everybody who is participating in this call, and you all have to have a unique word, what would that word be? Jay is looking up at the sky, so I'm going to come to him first to see what he would offer up.
I think all of us probably have this. I don't want to take the word away from any of the other panelists, but
it just means they have to work harder to find a different word. So that's the benefit.
So I would personally say resilience. That's what I would say is just, resilience.
Okay. Rohan?
Probably say opportunity. Just look at what's changing and how you can capitalize on the situation rather than the flip side of it.
Amir?
Can I say a sentence or two?
No, one word.
Team.
Change?
Team. Okay. Collaboration, team, and so on. AJ, over to you.
Probably could guess it, but optimism.
Yeah, that's 2021 in a nutshell. I mean, I'm excited for where we're going. And look, I want to say thank you to each of you. I've had a call with all of you previous, and for me, spending so much time traveling around the world speaking about big disruptive change and opportunity, to discover a lot of this happening in my own backyard, to discover this happening in Canada, to discover this happening in the Brampton, Mississauga region, to discover this happening in this glorious, wonderful, diverse country that we have known as Canada. To me, this is magic, and this is the future. This is opportunity. So thank you very, very much for sharing your insight. And Pam, with that, I will bring it back to you, and I will just close off with one last shot of where all my magic has happened in terms of my ability to reinvent and pivot. And that's my word for 2021 is reinvention, because I think it's critical to what is happening, where we're going. So Pam, over to you, and thank you for inviting me in.
That's amazing, Jim. Thank you so much for your insights, and I love the kind of words summing up 2021 with the opportunity, resilience, collaboration. I think these are all things that we want to leave all our listeners with. Optimism that 2021 has opportunity, and the way for us to grow is really looking at our world in a different way. So thank you so much to all of our 4 panelists. It's been amazing to hear the stories, and it's always been a pleasure to work with you, and we look forward to continuing to work with you, and someday maybe in person. Thank you to Shirley. Thank you so much to our friends in the Brampton Innovation District, to the Mayor Patrick Brown, his recorded remarks, and all the folks from economic development that have helped us get to where we are today, right here in downtown Brampton. And we look forward to continuing to work with you over 2021.